So the first step in your project is securing your property and figuring out your planning. So in this phase, this is going to include where the heck are you going to be putting this thing? Do you already own land or are you looking for land? And ultimately, what kind of plans might you need to submit to your county? The unit we're in right now, it's only 120 square feet. Some people might think, hey, it's under 200 square feet. I don't need a permit. In some counties, that is true. But in a lot of areas, as soon as you make it a livable space, you're gonna have someone sleeping here, there's electrical, maybe there's plumbing. At that point, they typically will want some level of permitting just to make sure that it's a safe structure.
Some counties and some states might require you to have plans made up for the actual structure.
And that'll include your engineered foundation drawings, structural engineered drawings for your A-frame, and then your basic architectural drawings just to make sure your space and the way you're designing things meets code.
So these A-frames are pretty heavy, so that is going to require a foundation. Some counties might require an actual foundation, a concrete foundation. Some might just, require you to level it off and pour some gravel.
Yeah, if you're in an area where there's really low building regulations, which a lot of people that are looking to this are in those kind of areas, I've noticed. It's a lot of people in rural areas, mountainous kind of country. You could really get away with a compacted crushed gravel foundation. You can put some 4x4 wood skids kind of across it that this is going to rest on, just to maybe keep it off the ground a little bit. And I think you're going to be in good shape.
Step 2 is the base of this A-frame. This A-frame specifically that we built sits on an actual metal frame. So I believe it's 14 gauge steel, and it's basically built to the size of the home, and it's ribbed, and it has cross members all the way across for a steady subfloor.
Yeah, I think we do the steel frames because they're modular. We're building everything here in Vegas and they're going to get shipped out of state. If you're building on site, it could be a lot easier to work with wood.
Yeah, it could be something like a 4x4, type of setup, or a 4x6, something that's to get it off the ground and have an actual level subfloor.
Yep, and then that base, ultimately, it's going to be on top of, if you had the foundation going on, you'll build that first as your base, and you're going to be putting your subfloor directly on top of that. And we'll talk about insulation shortly, but also insulating the underside.
So on these A-frames, we use steel studs. Basically, we lay out a track on the base for the sidewalls, and then we just lay up our steel studs into the actual frame. So there's like a triangle, and we just, at the top, we connect it there, and we connect it down on the track on the ends of the base. And then we frame in the actual end walls after we have the actual triangle made.
Yeah.
And
for us, the steel studs, it keeps it lightweight for transportation. It's kind of like the base. If you're doing it on site, that could be 2x6 wood for your sides. All of ours were cut at like a 26-degree angle.
Yep.
Just to give you an idea, this is a 10x12 space, so it's only 10 feet wide. And for your front and end walls, it could just be 2x4 framing for something this size. Step 3 is your exterior. So it is important to do your exterior early on in the build process because your A-frame is likely out exposed to the elements. And it's nice to be able to get it waterproofed as well as just protect it from theft or vandalism. So as part of your exterior process, you're gonna be, now that your framing is up, you're gonna be installing your doors and windows. You're also gonna be sheathing your exterior. So that's the slanted roof, your front wall, your back wall. What do you recommend in terms of sheathing? Best product to use for that?
We just go with like a 1/2-inch OSB. They do make actual tongue and groove OSBs that go, for roofing specifically. But that's what we sheathe with. We lay down basically a waterproof barrier and then sheathe right over that.
Yeah, and after you put your sheathing down, so it'll look like a giant wooden covered structure, your next step is your underlayment for your sidewalls. That's where your metal roofing panel is going to go. That'll go directly on top of your sheathing. And then on your front and back walls, you'll want to use some kind of vapor barrier just to make sure moisture doesn't transfer to the inside.
So for the exteriors, we use sheet metal roofing. It's called standing seam metal roofing. And you can get that in a variety of colors. It's a nice thin sheet metal, but it's a lot thicker than the average sheet metal you'd get from like a Lowe's or something like that. It's really good quality and really waterproof.
Yeah, it works great. I think the brand we're using is Barrage.
Yeah.
And I recently looked at their color chart, and yeah, probably about 30 different color options, so you can get really creative with that.
And the last thing we like to do on the exterior is siding. So if you notice around our doors, we always have a nice wood siding that we like to put on the front of it. Just makes it just makes it pop really nice. The brand of stuff we use is actually called Thermery wood. It's very pricey, very good quality though. You want to explain what it is?
Yeah, I think it's like $6 a linear foot, and it's only 6 inches tall.
Yeah.
If you do the math, that's $12 a square foot. So you might want to be a little bit conservative with the amount that you're using. You'll see on a lot of our units, it's really just on the front side where it's front facing, surrounding the modern entry door. But I love it. I think it just adds a whole nother level of quality to the space. It also is a wood that's gone through the process where all the sugars have been taken out of it. So it's also a great option if you're in a drier climate. So definitely been happy with it. Step 4 is your interior roughen. So now that your exterior has been completed, you're ready to transition to the inside. Your roughen is essentially everything that's going on in your interior walls prior to you putting up your walls. So this is going to include your rough plumbing, rough electrical, rough mechanical, which is your HVAC, if you have any propane lines that need to be ran, and your insulation.
So if you want more details on A-Frame roughen, we actually have a video from a few weeks ago. See the link in the description below.
Now we do want to mention insulation and HVAC, kind of how do we do that in these tiny of units. For insulation, you know, our favorite product to use is just closed cell spray foam. We're really happy with the insulation value that you get from it. We'll typically do about 3 inches on the side walls, the end walls, and then at least 2 inches on the base. That could vary on your location, so you do want to see what your R value requirements are, which is just your insulating rating requirements.
For HVAC, we just use portable HVAC systems. These do require venting, so we vent directly through the floor with them. They actually work really well because of how well insulated we make these things. So it doesn't require a lot of heat to actually heat up this little space.
Yeah.
So it works really well for what we do. Step 5, after you roughen your A-frame, you're gonna wanna start with your sidewalls. This can vary to what you wanna do. We like to use siding. So we use a shiplap or use an actual like tongue and groove wood. But I have seen A-frames where they do plywood.
Yeah.
It just all depends on your preference. So
yeah, like right behind us, this is an example of our MDF shiplap. Works out really well, really simple to install. You also could drywall one of these if you wanted to, or you can get creative and mix and match. Maybe you got the wood siding, your ends are finished out a different material, so a lot of options. After we do the walls, our next step is the flooring. So once our walls are installed, we'll lay down our floor. Typically we just use a laminate flooring. We like to go with something that's a little bit thicker, like 10 mils.
Waterproof.
Yeah, waterproof is great as well. Yeah, I like to stay away from like a really dark, solid color floor because that tends to show a lot of dust. So I do like when it has like a lot of grain looks to it, so it doesn't really track footprints and things like that as much. And then what do we got after flooring, Cam?
I think after flooring, we trim. So we do all the corners, we trim out all of the edges of the shiplap and the baseboards, and then we do cabinets. That's right. Cabinets are a little tricky on these. Obviously, this is a triangle, and most standard cabinets are just squares. So it does require a little bit of custom work to actually get these cabinets to fit. But yeah, I mean, they work out great. You just, you know, throw a butcher block on top of it and it ends up turning out really slick. Yeah, and just how Cam mentioned, the cabinets have to get angled in the back, so you can either modify an existing cabinet or make one from scratch that matches that angle. The butcher block does as well. So butcher block obviously comes as a rectangle. We end up cutting it at the same angle so it tucks in real nice. And then we do butcher block collapsible bar tops, same thing. Those are cut at an angle. And there's additional backing for the mount so that they do remain perpendicular so your table can fold up nice. The last thing we do is the bed on these A-frames. We have in the past built out beds, custom made, you know, built to the angle of the wall. But we did find a bed frame that works for us off of Amazon. And we basically just buy the bed frame and then we build it into the unit. So we attach it to the wall and then we trim it out to kind of make it look like it's an actual piece of the home.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. Previously, we tried to do like a 100% custom built bed. It turned out really nice. It was good quality, but the amount of time it took was quite a bit. I mean, I think it was over 20 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
So by buying a pre-made bed frame, we're really just attaching plywood to the top of it, trimming out the face of it, and that time is cut into a third probably.
For sure. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I hope you guys learned a little more about these A-frames. If you're interested in the models we have, visit our website, alternativeliving-spaces.com.
Yeah, and if you are a DIYer, we put together our A-Frame Jumpstart guide. It's just giving you basically the framework for how to get started. You know, we talked about permitting, we talked about plans, you know, what are all those things that you need to know to start your build? It's gonna help you with that process. That's completely free and is linked below as well.
We'll see you on the next video.
Later.